Attracting new Rotarians is the goal of most Rotary clubs. Engaging current members is just as important. In this video, Jim Adamson provides ideas and background for growing vibrant clubs. Download the workbook for greater impact. Attract new Rotarians. Engage current members. Grow sustainable clubs.
I was going to have Neil introduce himself just a little bit because I don't know if you all know, I mean, you've seen him, but do you really know him?
Thanks, Jim. My name's Neil Berg. I'm an investment advisor and portfolio manager with RBC Dominion Securities the last 3 decades. I've lived in Red Deer, Alberta, Canada for the last 33 years. 2 grown sons. One's a mountain guide and the other one is a writer who lives in Europe right now. I love outdoors, as yourself, fishing, hiking, golf in the summertime, skiing and curling in the winter, and I keep threatening to take up hockey again.
The reason we want to do this is because as we talk about attracting and retaining members, how important is it for members that are in your club and for people coming into your club to know people's names, to know their vocations, to know their passions, to know what they're interested about? Is that important for retention of a person, do you think? Anybody here at the radio station WIIFM? What does that mean? What's in it for me? Yeah, nice radio. So that's basically why a lot of people join Rotary, because they're looking for, what am I going to get out of this? Now, we all know that once you get into Rotary and start getting involved, that changes, right? It's not what's in it for me, it's what can I do to help other people and help our community. So we need to do that. We need to provide value. We need to show them what's in it for them, all these things that we can do for them. And once they figure that out, they're going to be serving the community like you can't believe. So attraction and retention, in a way it kind of goes together. In a way it has to have kind of a consistent message, because as we want to attract people, we are looking for, different things we can do to attract people to our club. But at the same time, once they get to our club or see our club, is that going to be the same message that attracted them? In other words, if you say, yeah, we're a fun club, we do all these local activities, and we, do this, and then they get to your club, what do they find? Do they find an opposite message? Kind of like 2 magnets that repel? Or is it going to be the same? Are they going to see what you're talking about? Are they going to see you doing what you say you're doing? Okay? And so that's a big piece of it. We need both the attraction piece and the retention piece, but they have to kind of work together. The message has to be the same, because that will really help in retaining and attracting the members, especially the retention part. How welcoming is your club? And you can get a real sense of that just by watching on a daily basis or visiting another club, seeing how they do it. But it's nice to be welcomed properly. Again, some of you probably have had experience where you come in and nobody's even there at the greeting table, or they just point you a direction, and you don't know what to do with food or paying or any of that stuff. And that's kind of the first thing that visitor is going to experience. Usually the first item of business, bell rings. Okay, let's all bow in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the amazing blessings you've given to this club. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. How many clubs start that way? Similar. Oh, good. Now, the thing is, this is part of a lot of cultures, a lot of clubs' culture, and there's nothing wrong with that. Remember that, we deal with other people coming in, what they're looking for, how welcoming we're going to be. Remember about the diversity issue. And that includes religious diversity as well. Sometimes, even though it's part of our club culture, people feel excluded if we have invocations the same way or not. Some clubs feel very awkward if they don't. So you just need to basically take a look at your own club culture, and whatever that is good, but just be mindful that and people coming in, we don't want to feel exclusive. So those clubs have gone to a Rotary moment, or alternating between an invocation and Rotary moment. I mean, it could be a big thing to some people. How about singing? How many clubs sing? Yeah. That's another sore point with some people. That's part of a club's culture. However, last year, when they had a young generations meeting, some of those younger folks said there are 2 things that turn them off to Rotary meetings. One is the money, another is singing. it's just not part of their culture. It doesn't, it makes them feel uncomfortable. Now, for some of us, we like to start the day with a song. And sometimes it depends the song. If it's a Row Row Rotary, that's a little outdated. But, a patriotic song or, somebody who plays the piano and gets people up and going. So, again, whatever your club culture is okay. Just be aware that it may keep people from joining the club if it feels uncomfortable or foreign to them. So you don't have to change, but some clubs have, just to get more people included and attract a younger generation. So just a thought on that. Same thing with money. We ask, when they come in, what do they see? They see the sergeant at arms collecting money or the sheriff. They see happy bucks, sad bucks. They see we need to give to the foundation. Say, here's a local charity. Here are the cups. Put in for polio plus. And that's what they think is, well, they just want me for my money. Be sure to explain to them all about the money stuff ahead of time. But also, are there ways that we could keep from dinging everybody for money all the time? Are there other things we could do? Could we reduce meal prices? Could we, just things that each club has to think about because each club is different. But know that money is one of the things that the young generation thinks that that's kind of all we're after. That's kind of their picture of our brand is getting money.
On our agenda today, don't forget, it's November, and we all know what that means. It's TRF and EPN. Okay, and our club wants to make sure that we are EREY, as we have been every year. Also, later this month, we've got a visit from the DG and the AG.
So you get the picture. We that have been in Rotary for a while, we don't think about this, right? I mean, we know most of these terms. We assume everybody else does, and of course that's the wrong assumption. Even happy bucks, we don't know what that means. So we don't want to talk a foreign language. Remember that this could be a visitor's first time, or even a new Rotarian that's been in for a year may not have heard a lot of these acronyms that we use, or not know what they mean. Here we talk about TRF for the first year, and the poor guy doesn't even know what we're talking about. So part of the education for members, but it's also part of explaining to a guest when you have them, we're going to be talking about, the TRF, that means the Rotary Foundation, and happy bucks, that's when we do this. And so kind of explain to them along the way so they kind of know what's going on in your meeting instead of being uncomfortable. And the other thing is when you start finding people or people are donating money, make sure your guest knows they don't have to do that. Mary, did you enjoy coming to our meeting? Yeah, do you want to join? Sometimes we pop the question right away before, give them a chance to breathe, give them a chance to come back to a meeting, give them a chance to talk outside a meeting with people. Sometimes we scare people away by asking the question too soon. Okay, think about it from their perspective. It should be all about them, not about us. After all that, how did Mary feel? We've got to, when a big guest comes and the guest leaves, ask yourself, well, how did that guest feel, do you think? Were they treated warmly? Were they educated? Did they see the fun that was going on? Did they feel valued? And if the answer is yes, you probably did a good job, and invite that person back again. Follow up with a phone call. See if she has any questions, and then go from there. Those are the things that Mary Smith values. So see if you have shown that. Every aspect of what we do all the way through, from the very beginning, thank you, the very beginning when the person comes to the door, how he's welcomed, how he's introduced, how he's made aware of things, and even the leaving at the end of the day. Left at the table is not a good thing. So hopefully none of you have had that experience, and your guests will not have that experience. Perhaps this is more like your club. It's more than just a place where people go hang out and have beer, right? I mean, it's a connection. It's a community place. People where everybody knows your name. I like a Norm. We want Rotary to be that too. A place where everybody knows your name. You have to make opportunities to do this sometime. We mentioned that we want people to know our name. We want people to know our vocation, our passions, our skills, a little bit about us. And how many of you, just raise your hand, how many of you know the name and vocation of every person in your club? Okay, that's good. How many, raise your hand if you think everybody in your club knows your name and vocation? Okay? So just take a look at those fun things. There are opportunities that we can make as a club. We can create opportunities for people to get to know each other, and we need to do that. Most clubs have classification talks. which is a good thing. We need those, but sometimes you can't get the new people in to a classification talk fast enough. So there's other things you can do there too. Short 2-minute rapid fire questions that the person gets ahead of time. Or maybe having a round at a table where each person has 2 minutes. So a lot of fun things you can do, but it has to be deliberate. So as a president or a club officer or a membership person, work with your officers, work with your president to make sure that some of these things happen occasionally. Yeah, our club classification talks are the most fun programs because they really get a lot out of it. Some clubs do 2 in one program. They do a new member and an older member, the same program, just 10, 15 minutes each. And whatever you want to do, just make sure you give time. And that's a good idea because the old members that have been around for a long time, that doesn't mean the newer members know anything about them. So reclassifications is also a cool thing. Now, the good news. Mary, even after coming to our club, still wants to join. Now, during this process, she had been introduced to Rotary. She's been to a club meeting maybe 2 or 3 times. She's been through an orientation, so she knows up front what's going to be expected of her. And I'll have to say at this point that orientation is probably the first step, well, maybe first impression is the first step, but orientation is one of the first steps to retaining your members. Because if you don't have an orientation, if they don't know what they're expected to do or what's expected of them, and then they get surprised when they join, it won't be long before they leave. So you should always have an orientation before the person joins to make sure, these are the benefits of being a Rotarian. Here are our stories, a little bit about you. Here's what we expect our members. Here's how much it's going to cost. Here's the time that we expect people to put in. All that stuff needs to be up front so they're clear that they know what they're getting into. Just from the induction, you have some things in common. Some of you have things in common with her. Use those things. Don't just let her go out the door or the next week when she comes in. Use those connections to talk about the things you have in common so that you get to know each other better. That's how the friendships and the relationships start. And that's how we know more about her. So that kind of induction does a lot of different things. And it takes a little longer, but again, it's well worth it. Because you're going to have a member that feels a vested interest in the club. You're going to get the connections of the group. You're going to get the connections of the family. The sponsor. It's just a great way to do things. This induction, by the way, is also in your book. Do you have to do it that way? No. Make it your own thing, but the main thing, get those key elements in there if you can. Retention is a big issue, and personal induction and orientation, those are key things. But let's talk about skills and passions, because this is something, again, Mary Smith probably would like to be, she has some skills. She's a stationery store owner. She has some other skills and passions that she wants to bring to the club, and she would probably like to do that. That's one of the things that people say that they join. So we're going to find out, Neil's going to ask her a little bit about that.
Manon, you're an accountant, right?
Yes.
That is perfect because we're going to put you on the Treasurers Committee because that's always been a bugger to fill. Thank you.
We want to engage their passions and skills for what they want to engage them for, not for our purposes. So it's very simple. A treasurer is a tough job to find. So who gets asked? Bankers, accountants, bookkeepers. They do that all day. Maybe they don't want to be a Rotary Club treasurer. Let somebody else do it. So don't assume just because that's what they do that they would fit in that position. I mean, they might, but let them express where they would like to serve and how they would like to use their passions. A couple of different things that are in your book. One is an actual new member guide. How many clubs have a written new member guide? Okay, 1, 2, awesome. That's 45 to go. So this is something that you can do. There's a sample in there. Again, you can revise this anyway. But this is where you can give the member all kinds of information that they can read after they're inducted, to go home, check it out, all your history of Rotary International, if you want to put that in there, club expectations, projects, whatever you want to put, but it's a guide, information, so they'll know more about your club and will have some answers, just maybe from looking at that resource. Yes, and that brings us to the next point, the mentorship. So this is one of the keys to good retention. Clubs that have mentors, active mentors, that can mentor a new member, have a far greater rate of success as keeping those people. And sometimes we have mentors, and we'll say, Jack, could you mentor this person? They say, sure. And then that's the end of it. I say, well, Jack's going to be your mentor. Call him if you need help. Does he ever call? No. You need to set up a mentorship program, and an effective thing is to have actually a written mentor guide so mentors know what their expectations are. Maybe one of their expectations is to help the new member get through that checklist that we were talking about of what you need to do to get your new member sticker off or a blue badge turned to a whatever. If your club has a checklist, that should be the mentor's responsibility to make sure that that person knows how to check those things off and works with them on that. Also, their responsibility maybe to invite them to different socials or different projects, to educate them. So it's not just being available for answering questions, it's being proactive, working with that person, and a written guide is a good way to keep that consistent in your club. If you can pair somebody up with somebody with a common interest, somebody that has a little bit of Rotary knowledge, that works pretty well, or a committee, whatever your club decides, try to find some kind of a way to get a mentorship in there somewhere. Long-term members, sure, the new members aren't the only ones that drop out of Rotary, right? The biggest percentage are the ones from the first 3 or 4 years in Rotary have the greatest number of dropouts because they never get really engaged. But sometimes we have the long members that have been engaged, but now they're unengaged. They have either feel they passed their time, they somehow feel useless, or they're too old, or whatever. How can we keep them engaged? But basically, they need to stay involved, and they need to see be valued. So what can you do to keep your older, experienced members involved? What kind of things can you give them to do? What kind of jobs can they have? What kind of things can they be in charge of? Make them feel valuable and special, because they are. They have a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience. We talked about service projects, being key, the foundation. That stuff is one of the things that you're going to get them involved in and educate them about. Which brings us to the fourth key, and that is, being in the know, being educated. This is another thing that I think our Rotary clubs fall down a little bit on, is educating new and existing members. That's a big job, because Rotary is a big organization with lots of acronyms and lots of things that we do. But being in the know, knowing about Rotary gives them more of a sense of pride and belonging, helps them get engaged and integrated into the club more. So whatever you can do to educate that, whether it's through a mentor or whether it's through different things you do in your club, Rotary moments, firesides, whatever it is, take some time, make education a priority at some point. Anyway, the council legislation, for those of you that don't know, meets every 3 years. There were a representative from every district at that meeting. They pass enactments and resolutions. So we're not going to get into that. However, you should know that out of all the proposals, there were a lot of things. This is kind of a monumental year for the council, because they passed resolutions and enactments that allowed Rotary clubs to do a whole lot of different things on their own. Flexibility. Things that were not in the bylaws or constitution before. They've opened up a whole bunch of things. Things that your club can do differently to help attract and engage people, to help retain your members. What are anybody doing anything different real quickly? Like, anybody cut down their meetings from 4 to 2 or 3? Anybody using a social or service project in place of a meeting? Anybody have corporate memberships or family memberships? So these are just samples of things that clubs can do, and there's an amazing amount of things, and we're not going to go over all of them, but just ask your district people, the resources that you have, the other clubs that have done different things and that have worked. Your club may need to try something different. If you've got a club that's not growing in membership, if they're declining, if things are getting kind of stale, do something different. There's some flexible things that we're allowed to do now that would really maybe be helpful. So take a look at that. Think about all of your brand experience that you do. Think about the flexibility. Think about the diversity out there. How can you attract all these other types of people that you'd like to have in your club? Other people that would love to have fun and form friendships and help you in your service projects. And maybe figure out some different ways that would appeal to them. Maybe some different types of meetings or ways to meet or times to meet.
Thank you for watching this video. Check out the other episodes in this series that are packed full of ideas for club growth. It's Rotary membership, Priority 1.